momento de fala, uma palestra com a professora doutora Bárbara Culatta, e ela vai falar um pouco para a gente sobre, eu vou encontrar aqui, sobre letramento científico para a tradução, digamos assim, porque ela trabalha com crianças, ela ensina inglês para crianças, ela tem vários trabalhos nessa área, mas, na verdade, ela vai falar de uma forma geral. Todos aqui são muito bem-vindos, espero que vocês aproveitem a palestra, nós vamos ter um minutinho, um tempinho depois no final, para que vocês, se vocês tiverem perguntas, podem mandar as perguntas lá, aí no chat mesmo do YouTube, pode ser em português, não tem problema, eu transmito para ela em inglês, ela vai responder em inglês, eu vou traduzir em português para aqueles que não se sentirem confortáveis com a língua inglesa, tá bom? O importante é que vocês participem. Eu gostaria de pedir para que vocês desliguem os celulares, tá? Para que não haja interferência, e também mantenham o microfone de vocês desligado, não deixem, som nenhum aberto, para que a gente possa ter uma apresentação mais fluida, ok? Good afternoon, Bárbara. It's nice to have you here. It's an honor for us to have you here. I hope, and I believe we're going to learn a lot from your presentation, which is emergent scientific literacy, right?
Yes.
Bárbara Culatta. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
That's great.
It's showtime.
Years ago, I spoke some Portuguese.
Oh.
Yes, I did. I've studied it, but I've lost it. So.
Do you want to try to do it in Portuguese?
No. But maybe you could come back someday.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to be here. So I have worked in the area of early scientific literacy, which essentially is ensuring that children, I'm looking at moving my screen forward and it's not moving. Let's see.
No. Can't you move it?
I'm using what I usually use to move my screen forward. Let's see.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. Take your time. Technical things, technical arrangements, they made us crazy sometimes. You want it to go forward?
No, I'm using my keys that usually work, and I'm not seeing any other options here.
In case you can't, you just go.
No,
Pessoal, só um minuto, nós estamos tendo alguns problemas técnicos aqui com os slides dela, mas vai dar certo. Let me see if I have it right here, maybe I can share. Pior que eu não tenho aqui.
Let's see. So you're seeing it, but you're not seeing it full screen.
Yeah, I see all the slides.
Yeah. Okay, then when I hit full screen, which I did before, now I'm hitting full screen. It's not going back.
Tiago, não tem aqui, né? O slide dela.
Eles mandaram?
Silvânia não mandou. Falei, ela não entendeu.
Eles mandaram em PDF ou em PowerPoint?
Deixa eu ver aqui.
Okay, so we're back to where we were, but...
Can it go for... I have your presentation here, but... Let me see if I can share it.
Can you see this?
Yes. Now it's okay.
Okay, so I can't see you, but so I will just present. I can't see you now because
It's okay. We are seeing you, and we can see the slides moving on. It's fine.
okay.
You can't see me, right? But I'm not
All
important. The important is you. You are the important person here. Forget about me.
All right. So we'll talk about the nature of emergent scientific literacy, and then the way this information is organized. So scientific information is organized in very specific ways, and even young children can learn about those organizations. It's very important because certain information is related and connected in specific ways. And so we can teach that very early. And then there are some instructional strategies, like how to represent that organization or to map it or to make it visual. And then how to make connections among various sources of information and provide hands-on experiences for kids and to activate and build their knowledge and to facilitate language and conversation about scientific content. And then distinguish between what's real and what's pretend. So the nature of scientific literacy, young children can acquire scientific information and content and can comprehend science-based texts. And for a while, we wouldn't teach young children science-based texts for a long time. But now, even preschool children, we teach science-based information. And when we do it in very playful ways, then they become engaged and they definitely can benefit from instruction. So our goals would be for children to identify the ways in which scientific information is organized, and then to comprehend really important key terms that signal those relationships and important ideas, and that they will pose questions and hypothesize, or essentially just generate some questions about the real world, and then that they can make models and visual representations of scientific, either biological or physical science content, and that they can identify these processes, scientific processes in the environment, and observe similarities and differences and notice physical phenomenon. Anyway, and that they can draw conclusions based on evidence so that they really can begin to deal with cause-effect relationships. So the way scientific content is organized. And I just want to make the comment that I'm using in this presentation biological content.
Barbara?
And yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you please speak slower, a little bit slower?
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's because of the transcription, and there is a delay. So if you speak a little bit slower, it's going to help us. Okay?
All right.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I'm glad you did.
Go ahead.
Okay. So in this presentation, I'm going to use biological science as an illustration of how this works. But I've also used the physical sciences, and I've had a project. My husband is an engineer, and he and I had a project where we were teaching children the physical science concepts. So just be aware that what I refer to can be applied to the physical sciences as well as biological science. So scientific information can be organized in various ways. One is compare and contrast. The other is description of elements and of characteristics of a biological or physical phenomenon. The other is cause-effect, problem solution, and then sequence. Things happen in a sequence or a process where they're going to happen in a chronological order. So with compare and contrast, we can compare bats with birds. And we can do it by taking a book on bats and reading about bats, and then a book on birds and reading about birds, and also just talking about, what do we know? Have you ever seen a bat? Have you ever seen a bird? And then we're going to characterize or detail how they're different and what characteristics do they share. They both fly, they have wings, and they can see. So there are certain key words that signal these relationships. And those key words are same, different, not same, not different, alike, also, both, but the bats can see at night, but the birds see at day. And so we teach children how to organize the information and those key words that signal that organization of the main ideas. So with description, it's really just what are the characteristics in a particular entity. For example, ants. They have 2 eyes, they have feelers, they can smell, and they use their feelers to touch. They have 6 legs. So it's just description of really important characteristics. Cause effect. So falcons started to disappear. Their presence was declining. And scientists had to find out why. What they saw was that the eggs were thin-shelled and cracking. And so the baby birds couldn't live. And what they realized is that the falcons were eating bugs because that's what they eat, but it caused a problem. Those bugs were poisoned. They had poison because the farmers were trying to kill bugs. And because they were killing the bugs had poison, the falcons would eat the poison. And because of that, that caused their eggs to be very fragile. And then because of that, as a result, the eggs would break and the babies weren't big enough to live. So it's just identifying this important way in which information is related in order to convey scientific information to kids. Another of the organizations is problem solution. So the falcons were disappearing. That was a problem. And they had to figure out how, but when they figured out how, the solution, the way to fix the problem, the way to make it all better. Do you see what I'm trying to do is with kids, we use lots of different child-friendly explanations for these important connecting words. And so because of that, we had to stop using that bug poison. And you see what we're also is important to do is graphically represent those important ideas. So we think about what is the relationship that we want to convey, how do we graphically represent it, and how do we use really important words and explanations to make it clear to kids. So sequence is just in an order. And so the key words are first, next, then, and then finally. So then they had to get the falcons back in the wild so that they could have babies and they could thrive. At first, they would keep the falcons in a big cage, and then they would let the falcons have baby falcons. But of course, they were not giving them poison bugs. But then they would teach the falcons to fly, and then they would let them go. So that's how we got to increase the number of falcons back in the wild. So a process is a natural relationship among events in a chronological order. And so it has the same key words, but an example would be the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. So there's a mother butterfly, and she lays eggs, and then the caterpillar grows inside an egg and then crawls out and then hangs upside down and becomes a chrysalis, grows this layer. And then inside, the butterfly is growing, and then the butterfly, of course, pushes out of the chrysalis. So that is a process. So we have to keep those in mind, because that's whenever we're teaching scientific content to kids, we're teaching it within one of those structures. That's the goal. And so we highlight and represent the organization and involve kids in highlighting and representing the organization. So one of the things that I love doing, I'm not sure how prevalent snails and slugs are where you are, but we have quite a few of them. And I love catching them, and I love children watching them, but of course we let them go. That's my opinion. But they are fun to compare and contrast. So has a shell. Does a snail have a shell? Yes. Does a slug? No. So here it is. The child is participating in this representation just by either marking a check if on the elements that the characteristics that each animal has. And so this is just an example of one way of visualizing a compare and contrast. And then it gives you this chance also to talk through these elements. So here we have a representation of mice from a book, and then we're going to compare the mouse from the book from people.
So today what we're going to do is we're going to figure out the differences between humans and mice. You guys are going to help me. You're going to be my helpers, okay? So right here, I've got my chart, and this one over here says people, and this one over here says mice. And you're going to help me. We're going to put some objects on our chart to figure out the differences. Okay, I'm going to hand one to each of you guys. Let's start with Haley. Haley, what do you have in your hand? Show everybody. What is that?
Footprints.
It's footprints, exactly. Haley, how many footprints, how do we say that, are there?
1, 2,
3, 4. How many feet do people have?
2.
2. So that was probably made by mice. So which side are we going to put it on? People or mice?
Mice.
Yeah, come on over and put it down. And people, mice, have 4 feet. People have 2 hands and 2 feet. So those are different. Those are differences between them. Let's see, who else? Jordan, what do you have?
The fox.
You've got a house. Who lives in a house? People or mice? What?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Put that right there. And mice, they live in a little nest, a real mouse. In the story, he was in a bed, but in real life, they live in a little nest. Are these the same or are they different? Different. Good job. I am so impressed. What else do we have? Lizzie, what do you have? A cup. In the story, where did the mouse take a bath? In a cup.
All right. So we want to represent the main ideas with props and pictures and involve the children in representing. So we can contrast a gorilla in a story as long as we're making sure that this is a story and it is not real. So with people, but after the story, then we did contrast a real gorilla with real people. So how do gorillas get their water? From plants, and people from sinks. So you can either write down what children say, or as the previous illustration showed, the previous video, you can use pictures to illustrate. But they both eat bananas. And when we've done this with children, we've done this with pictures. And here you can see what that representing that information with pictures. And then again, you've got what we're mapping on the right on my screen. And then you've got what it looks like for the children. But then after the children map this representation, then you help them retell it from the map. So we're going to compare wild horses with pet horses. So where do the wild horses live? The wild horses would live in a big open area or field. But the pet horses, they're going to live in a place with fences, smaller. Anyway, that's where, and so if you see the butt and using those comparison words while you're helping children retell the text from a map. And then just as I've been saying, you want to add those connecting and signal words in your retelling. So you're talking through that graphic representation and you're highlighting those signal or connector words. So this is comparing sharks and frogs and using the words same, not same, different, alike, but, for example, the sharks live in an ocean, but frog lives in a small little pond. Or sharks live in a big, 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 deep ocean, making the contrast. But the frog's going to live in a little shallow, not so deep pond. And you're always asking yourself, do the children understand the words I'm using? And if you think it's a word they don't know, then you're going to use child-friendly explanations to pair with that word. And we're going to highlight that text structure. So I often use real problems when I'm talking to kids and when I'm teaching kids about science. And I have a lot of them that happen to me, and several of them are here in this presentation. You think of your own problems that occurred or experiences that occurred with nature that you could bring in and tell and represent with kids. So I had a problem. I found a possum hanging from rafters in my garage. And it was a little scary just because I didn't expect them. And that's not where they should live. That's not where they usually live. they usually live out in the wild, in the woods, and they'll hang from trees. So I had a problem, and I had to solve the problem. I needed to fix the problem. I needed to find a way to get rid of these opossums. So I got a trap. It's called a have a heart trap. And I put food and they went in, and then I carried them into the woods and I opened up the flap and let them go. So talking about my problem and my solutions. We also want to find very simple, well-organized texts when we're engaged in presenting children with scientific information. This one happens to be a compare-contrast. So for example, are slugs bugs? Slugs and bugs are a lot alike. And we could add, but they also are different. They're not alike in all ways. And then comparing, beginning to compare. One creeps, but bugs can creep, but they can also fly. So, and I can tell you that we are now using AI to help us generate texts, well-organized, decodable texts at children's level. So we want to teach scientific content from multiple sources. We want to draw upon informational texts that are well-organized and compelling and have wonderful pictures and graphics, and also use YouTube videos.
They hop, they jump. Some of them stick to windows. Frogs. Frogs come in many different shapes, sizes, and colors, and can be found almost anywhere in the world. Add to that one of the most interesting life cycles on Earth, and it's no wonder that people everywhere are fascinated by frogs.
So that's another example of a process, how tadpoles turn into frogs. That's fascinating. So we want to highlight relevant information in text. And what I say always is we tell rather than read. Because when we tell from an informational text, we can adjust it to children's level. We can pull out the information that we think is most relevant. And we can capitalize on those photos and talk about those photos. So snails and slugs both make slime, and they need a lot of water to make this slime, because this slime, it's got a lot of water in it. It's just sort of a sticky kind of watery fluid, or like water, but it's real sticky, gooey. And then, but they need this slime because they creep up on really sharp surfaces. And I have bricks on my house, and I find them creeping up sharp bricks on my house. So it's just pulling out the important information and explaining it. So we can make connections across books, but again, always distinguish between fact and fiction. And a while ago, there was this program that was trying to teach informational content using fictional books, but we don't want to do that. What we want to do is make it clear, this is fiction, this book is fiction. My Friend Gorilla is a fun book, so is the other book by Anthony Brown, Gorilla, about a gorilla coming and living with a family. But that could not happen. It could not happen. It's in My Friend Gorilla, the little boy's father is a zookeeper, and the zoo is closed. So they bring the gorilla home. Anyway, just making it clear that that could never happen. But also finding really good, like the Seymour Simon book, really good informational texts. and then contrasting. So this is interesting. Ivan was a real gorilla, but he was kept in a cage in a shopping area. And there's a picture of him here that once scientists found him and said, this is horrible. They had to gradually release him. And so they gave him a bigger area with grass. And sorry, let's see, I'm trying to get this. So there he is. After he'd been, this is when he was discovered and released. But this is a horrible thing to do to a wild gorilla that needs space. So again, even though Ivan is real, it's not where gorillas really should live. And that's the point that we're making. So now I'm going to give you some examples of a project that we did. And it's about the life of corn plants. And what we would do is we would bring in plants and let kids see the different pieces of them, let them see the sprouts, and we brought in fresh corn. We also brought in dried corn, and they would grind the corn, the dried corn. So they would inspect the plant parts and the corn. And we also made it clear that the seeds that you would then plant would come from the corn. And later you will see this cycle. So here we would illustrate the cycle and have them help us illustrate this cycle. And then we would also list left to right the sequence, and that the children then would inspect the different stages of this corn plant. And then we did a lot of videos. So they would watch videos of seeds sprouting. And of course, we'd have to make sure that they know that it happens very slowly. And then we'd let the children pretend to be the seeds sprouting. And then they would watch the videos of, here we go. It's beautiful. Isn't it funny how sometimes it feels like you can almost watch the plants grow because they change so quickly, but we still can't see them. So they would inspect the seeds and the sprouts. And as we talked about the various stages and what the various pieces or parts of the stages do and why they're important. And so it starts out as a tiny shoot, and then they would get to plant the corn sprouts. First of all, they would make them sprout. So we put them in wet towels and make them sprout, and then they plant them. And so this is a good sequence. And then in order for them to understand about roots, we simulated it with, and I have some little cotton, here we go, little cotton pads. And we would use colored water, and the cotton pads would suck up and absorb the water. And we would say, this is water, but there are nutrients, there's food in the water, just like we put this color in the water. There's food for the plants, and those those sprouts suck up the water with the food, and that gives the plant what it needs. It nourishes the plant. So I'm trying to say the same thing in multiple different ways. And then we let the children grind the corn and make it into cornbread. And we also taught them how popcorn pops. And this was really lots of fun. So for example, sometimes we would just use an envelope that would be brown on the outside. But a friend of mine made these big corn seeds. So this is a corn seed. It's like a corn seed, but it's big. Corn seeds are just little, but it works the same way. I'm going to show you how corn seeds work. And we would show pictures of the corn seeds popping, and we would show pictures of videos of water boiling. When the water boils, it has a lot of energy and a lot of movement, and there's a little bit of water. We would actually put a little bit of water in this corn seed, this pretend one, and the water pushes around, and then it, whoops, sorry. There's another little video under that. Anyway, so, and then it pushes, and then it pushes the outside out, and it explodes. And then the white stuff that you can eat comes out, just like this one down here. Anyway, you saw that turning inside out. So it's a matter of just, it explodes, but it turns inside out. So what we're doing is making a concept that's abstract, concrete. And we activate and build knowledge. So we will simulate events that are related to the physical world. So this was, again, one of my problems. We have snails and slugs, but they like to eat vegetable plants and some really nice garden plants. But we've got a solution. We always we try to pair a solution with a way to fix the problem, a way to make it better. And they do not like vinegar. They also don't like cayenne pepper. So to keep the snails and slugs away, we can spray vinegar around the plant, and the snails won't want to eat the plant because they smell the vinegar. And so I actually took the kids outside and they would spray the vinegar. But I've got some salt here. Do not put salt on a snail or a slug. And the reason, I also have a vegetable here. So if we cut this vegetable and we put salt on it, water is going to come up. You're going to see a lot of water because salt pulls the water out of a vegetable, but also it would do the same thing. It would pull the water out of a snail or a slug, and then that would kill the snail or slug because they need a lot of water. So what we did when we would find snails, we would put them far away from the plants and also spray vinegar around. Here's another personal experience. I found mice in my house, and mice should not live in a house because mice like to make nests. And so they made a nest, but they did it by ripping up some of my wall. So by contrasting what a house needs or what in a house versus outside, there's bark from trees, there's feathers from birds, there's sticks, and so mice need to live in nests outside. Another of my stories is my son had a hamster when he was young. And one night he got out of his cage and we felt really, really badly about it. So we set a trap, and in the middle of the night, I heard the trap door and I went to see, whoa, I dreamt that we got the hamster, but we caught a mouse anyway. But so this story is how the hamster tried to get out because he didn't like his cage. He's a wild animal. It's hard to put a wild animal in a small little space. So what we did is have the children design a better hamster cage because he doesn't know the outside, so we couldn't just let him loose. But what we can do, and here's the video, whoops, sorry, is create a better hamster cage.
He needs a TV. Do hamsters watch TV? No. But do we watch TV?
Yeah. How about if he's in the wall, we could just like talk to him in the wall.
We could. That'd be fun, huh?
No.
Let's see, is that going to fit Ethan?
Hey, I already did that.
Yeah, you know what? He can have.
So ask them what they know
You
about
guys are helping each other
hamsters
out.
and wild animals. And
We need some toothpicks. What do we need the toothpicks for? Hi, Jordan. To just put him inside so he has something to play with?
Yeah.
You guys are so good.
so it's a matter of talking about, here is a problem and here are some solutions of trying to give that hamster a few more toys, a bigger space, but and highlighting the problem and solution structure. And we ask provocative questions like, have you ever been afraid or felt strange? Have you ever been in a new place and you didn't understand what happens there? Or so that's one way of starting with prior knowledge and then building from prior knowledge. So again, also one of my experiences was that I had a squirrel get into my house, but does a squirrel belong in a house? Why would a squirrel not fit well in a house? Couldn't get its food, didn't have a nest. And actually it was really challenging. He would run along the wall and leave footprints. And then a squirrel can make their bodies flat. And so we were trying to get it to stay in one room, but it would make its body flat and go under the door, the little space under the door. Finally, we did get it out, but where would it get its food? It's all of those contrasting between the right place to live versus a place that just does not fit. So in all of this, you can tell how much talking and explaining we do. We facilitate language and conversations about scientific content. And so particularly cause-effect relationships. And I had a hawk in my backyard. And hawks eat smaller birds. So it's a big bird. And that's how the hawk gets its food. So he ate birds from all the other kind of birds that were in my yard. And he would eat their eggs, and he would fly over. This table here is a table in my deck. And he would drop the birds' nests. And because he was eating and destroying their nests, there were no other birds. That was the result. anyway, all of the explanations that we provide in child-friendly language. And then we tell a story to get a story. So you could ask the children, have you ever had a pet and you lost the pet? Or did you ever find an animal and it did not belong in that place? And did you ever find an animal that was lost? So I have tons of stories myself, but also from friends. This dog is a dog that got lost. Their family was traveling where there was a lot of snow and they got into an accident. And the dog then just ran. And the tow truck came and they had to get into the tow truck. So days later, they went back trying to find their dog. And they ended up finding their dog, but it was a big story. So it's taking something as simple or as familiar as a lost animal and asking them what they know about and what experiences they've had about pets in the wrong place or finding or losing an animal. And then we provide reasons to learn and activate interest. So as I had said earlier, that I had this beautiful plant, it's called a hosta plant, and it used to look like this. And then the snails and slugs ate it, and that's what it looked like. So, but what could I do? Any ideas? Maybe put a cage around it. I don't know, whatever, even if the ideas aren't logical. Find something that the snails and the slugs want to stay away from, like hot, spicy pepper. Anyway, and when I find animals, I do collect them, keep them safe, and then let them go and let the children let them go. We've collected crickets and grasshoppers and slugs and snails. And by giving child-friendly explanations. So slugs eat plants. So let's give this slug plants because there's water in plants and you can snap maybe a stem and let them feel the water in the stem. And a slug is mostly made of water. And plants have water. So we'll put some plants and water in this little container for the slug. And then we watch the slug eat the plants and then let them go. So we're using simple language and many examples.
Who remembers what a problem is? Oh, Kate raised his hand. What's a problem, Kate? Yeah, my hamster ran away. And more specifically, a problem is something that you don't want to have happen. But a solution is what, Matthew? And divided into the answer. That's a solution. A solution is a way to fix a problem. Friends, I have some boxes with pictures on it, and they have keyholes on them. And we are going to need to figure out if that is the solution for the story. Friends, someone just said at the very beginning, one of the problems to the very first problem I had in the story was what? What was that first problem? A shoe? That would be the solution. The problem was I had a hamster and he was in the cage, but then what happened? He got out of the cage. That's a problem. I didn't want that to happen, did I? So I needed to find a solution. I have 3 possible solutions we can choose from. Some shoes, a book, or a pot. So what did I do when my hamster got lost? What did I do? Oh, catch words and raise your hand. Matthew. He ran away, and how did I try to get him back? London? A cage. page. That's true. I've got 3 boxes here. Let's see which one of these 3 pictures is a clue to what I did. Quincy, the book. What did I do with the book? To see how I can get a map. Who has a picture on their key of a book? London, will you come up? And I will let you open this up and we'll see what's inside. Open it up. I'll let you open up the box and take a key. Thanks. Open up the box. See what's inside. It's kind of tough to open up. It's the book. And I look. Thank you so much. You can have a seat back. So I looked inside the book to figure out a way to get my hamster.
So we ask thought-provoking questions. Can a snail live without a shell? What about a cracked shell? This is a little video about a mouse that discovers a snail that lost its shell, and then he tries to find things that would work, and he has trouble finding something that would work, but then finally he actually all right. That one he didn't like anyway. He found some other things. But in real life, a snail's body is attached to that shell. And if the shell gets broken, then it can hurt the snail's body. If it's cracked a little, it could live. But one of the purposes of the snail is to protect it. So you could find ways of bringing things in, that an ant or something that get protected by, look, we can't poke it, we can't hurt it, somebody can't come down and eat it. And the snail's shell protects it. Plus it can pull in, and then its soft part, which is really, I want to say vulnerable, but I don't want to use the word vulnerable, easy to be hurt, then is protected because he pulls it in. Anyway, just finding ways of making these things really visually understandable. So I have apples in my backyard, but we do not spray them. We do not like the poison. And so the worms come out. And so I would ask children, I'd bring in the apples and I'd bring them eaten, and I'd bring them with the worms, and I'd say, how does a worm get in an apple? How do you think? And some of them guessed digging, some of them pushing in, some punched, bonged their heads. But the way the worm gets in is that a fly comes, a fruit fly, and it has a little tube, and it pokes the apple and drops an egg in the apple. The worm is born inside the apple. So there's a process, and what we did is we replicated it. And so we can replicate some scientific processes and talk children through them. And then we engage them in interactive and shared writing about the process. So it's another way of being able to highlight those relationships. As I mentioned, we want to distinguish between real life and pretend. And so we're going to contrast real life events with fictional stories. And this mouse mess, the mouse creeps up in the middle of the night when everybody's asleep and makes this big mess in the kitchen. It dumps out the crackers, it breaks up the cereal flakes, it jumps into the cereal as if it's leaves. And anyway, so we would relate the story and then describe in real life. A mouse wouldn't be able to open up the peanut butter jars, and so we would do a lot of differentiating real life from pretend. And so here's a book, Charlie Needs a Cloak. I know it's in Spanish. I'm not sure if it's in Portuguese, but Charlie is the shepherd, and his cloak is all tattered and worn, and he wants a new one. So he catches the sheep and he clips or cuts the fleece, and he twists it, spins it by pulling and twisting, and dyes it. So the process of making real wool is incorporated into this book. So what we could do is tell the story, and in the book, the sheep are always trying to get its wool back, which is really funny and cute. But separate from this, we can take children through the steps of making real yarn, wool. And we actually brought in, you can't always do this, but we brought in somebody that had sheep, but I'm able to do it just with getting some wool. And what we did is we made it into a digital book. We do a lot of turning these experiences into ebooks using, this is Pictello here, or using Book Creator. And so here are the children actually engaging in the process, separate from the book. And I don't have time, and didn't plan to talk about how do we also incorporate this into teaching literacy skills, the letter knowledge, letter names, letter sounds, rhyming, alliteration. But we do, for example, we have an activity where we have children take popcorn seeds. I've got some popcorn seeds here. I've got some real life examples of anyway, popcorn seeds, and they put a top on and hop so it doesn't hop out. And then we drop the popcorn in a pot, either a real popcorn popper, and we make it pop and pop. And then we take off the top and we find popcorn. So we have a whole activity where either children can read about it or we're rhyming. And then we make that into a digital book, and that's what it is on the left. The book in the middle is a book that actually includes how popcorn pops, but also how it was discovered. That they had these seeds and they were too close to the fire, and then they started to explode. They started to go pop, pop, pop. So it's this combining the narrative skills, the emergent literacy skills with the scientific content. I did bring these are seeds from my tree, and these are, don't know if you have these, maple seeds. And look, they have wings, and we let kids drop them, and when they drop, they spin, because this is like a flag, a flap, and it flaps. But the heavy part is the seed part. And because it is heavy, it pulls and spins, and then it goes right down into the ground. And then it's likely to make a new tree. So that the way this seed is created helps it to grow into a new tree. So, and I mentioned recreating situations where ants like to eat sweet things, and ants can smell, and ants like apples. And so we would make a trail of apples, and And ants actually do sometimes, a lot of times, walk in a line. They follow each other. And so they're going to follow this trail of apples that you made. All right. So young children are curious about the physical world and capable of handling informational scientific content and texts, and that we can activate their interest and provide these hands-on personalized experiences. And we definitely need to teach them how to organize this information, how to think about it, and the relationships among the main ideas or the organization of informational texts. So there's my email address. And I do have an early literacy project called Systematic and Engaging Early Literacy. There's the website there, education.byu.edu, SEAL, SEEL. And we have a newsletter and then book reader, library. Comments, questions?
Can you see me now?
I can if let me see.
You
Yes,
can see me.
I've seen you on a different screen, so I will look at this. It looks like I'm not looking at you, but now I can see you.
So amazing, awesome. And it's interesting. It's amazing how kids give us quick and interesting feedback. I love working with kids because they're fast. And that isn't right. They're fast. They're interested. They're, you know, when they're teaching and their eyes are like shining like this. It's different from adults, right?
Yes.
They're natural. They're natural.
I'm going to move you over here so I can see you there. Yeah. No, they are fun. They are lots of fun. And you know, you can make things accessible to them.
Yes.
And draw upon their existing prior knowledge. So there's a lot of research that shows that maybe the most important factor in children learning to read is their prior knowledge. You know, what content knowledge are they bringing into this thing that they're reading about? That
I have a question. It's not my question, it's Marcelini's question. I'm going to make it in English because of the transcription, right? Because if I say it in Portuguese, the transcription is not going to work. Okay. So, Barbara, let me see. Marcelini asked, how can contextualizing literacy contribute to valuing students' cultural, linguistic, and social knowledge, promoting more meaningful and inclusive education practice in schools?
Well, that's a big one.
You want me to repeat?
No, I think I got the gist. Yeah, I mean, there's a approach called funds of knowledge, that what we want to do is bring people from the community that have expertise and use that as the content, and that therefore they are learning, but they are learning about events, knowledge, experience, processes that are part of their community. So funds of knowledge. The other, I think, is it's not directly related to this question, but if children are learning more than one language, translanguaging. It used to be, way back in the 80s, I was involved in a Spanish dual language program, and it was ridiculous. They had somebody in the classroom who was just translating everything into Spanish, which meant that the children were probably just listening to the Spanish. Then it moved to, we don't ever speak Spanish if we're learning English. Never, never, never let that language in this context. Now, which I never really advocated for, because there are times when you have to pull out of the second language in order to explain in order to pair a known word with a new word. But translanguaging acknowledges that these children in their native languages are competent and capable, and therefore they can use it. At the same time, they're being immersed into a new language. So it's knowing when to use the maternal language. And I've done this in Guatemala, you pair an English word with a Spanish word, for example, and what I was doing. And then once you've paired it, then you can use the English word frequently enough with demonstrations, and so that it becomes deeply stored. Then the other thing is that there are times when you just have to give an explanation. So you give the overview or the explanation so the children can follow you, and then you hop in to using your second language, and they can follow you. And then if they say something in Spanish, you can acknowledge, oh yes, right, because they're indicating to you that they understood. So you can accept and acknowledge their use of their maternal language when it relates to what it is you're doing. So there's so many ways with translanguaging. So I would say the combination of funds of knowledge, and when it's a dual language program, translanguaging.
One more. One of our professors, Sofia Mara, she said, "Congratulations for your presentation. This theme is really interesting. Here we are creating a book for scientific literacy using artificial intelligence. It's a project worked with CNPq, or agents of motivating." Got it? They're creating a book. Let me see.
That's great.
Yeah, Sofia está por aí? Cortou aqui. I'm sorry. Yeah. They're creating a book for scientific literacy. They're using artificial intelligence. I think it's interesting either.
Yeah. So I use artificial intelligence to create materials for kids. But I'll tell you, it's a process. It's a real iterative process, and but once you figure out that process and the way to communicate with AI, it can do a lot.
Yeah, Lucivania and me, we are creating with Sophia an app. I believe she told you an app, so we can teach English for kids. And we're using the words from our region. Like, the vocabulary, it's completely different. We're not teaching like map or something like this that doesn't exist in our country.
Right.
In our region. So we took specific words, foods, plants, animals from Tocantins, from south of Tocantins.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
But. And I love the idea of contextualizing and putting it in the culture for sure. But I have seen programs where plant names are taught out of context.
I know.
So all you're doing is teaching these plant names, when in fact they need to be put in the context of planting the plants, or cultivating them, or turning them into food, or doing something with them. So teaching the names of things out of context doesn't make any sense.
Yes, that's why, like, we're creating an app so they can see the images. They can see, boy and girls, all the characteristics are from south of Tocantins. So you're not going to see a blonde girl with blue eyes or something like this.
Right, but in a context, so you've got the cultural context, but then you have to have the immediate context of what are they doing. That boy and that girl have to be engaged in something that relates to the culture, but it has to be not pulled out separate from going to the store, or making a dinner, or weaving fabric, or whatever.
But how about like we're building up in vocabulary first? Don't you agree with this?
But vocabulary out of context doesn't work because then you get nouns and no verbs, and you get verbs without any connecting ideas, and but the meaning of language is relationships, related ideas. Nothing in the world exists by just naming stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm asking because we are still in the beginning. We have 1 or 2 modules done. It's like a test. So we have 3 or 4 more modules to work. So probably that's why I'm asking you. You're gonna have we will contextualize those words that we are building up with them at the beginning of the app, and then we started with words like the region works, and then from that on we will start with sentences, with phrases, with I don't know. I still don't know, but that's
fit with a context that they can identify with. Yeah, everything is contextualized with something's going on that they have an experience with. Yes.
I understand. Yeah. We're still at the beginning. It's a test. We still have 1 or 2 modules, and I'm going to show you later. We're going to show you. It's really, really important to us that you give us your feedback. So people who are watching us, do you have questions? Anything else? My master degrees students who are outside. Estou ouvindo meus alunos do mestrado aqui fora. Do you have questions? Silence. See? A silence now. They were talking, and then I asked them about questions. Silence. Oh, Barbara, it was really, really nice having you here with us. I wish I could have more time to talk to you, but we are going to talk about the
We will talk. We can.
It was a pleasure having you here. And I hope you can come to Tocantins. You come to Gurupi to visit.
Oh, I would love to. I have been there, as I told you. It's been a while, but I have loved it.
We'll talk about that. Thank you very, very much.
And thanks for the invite.
Anytime you want to talk to us, you want to give us a presentation, lecture, we are here to listen to. Oh, Marcelene told us she loves your presentation.
Oh, good.
She love to listen to you. She asked me to thank you for the presentation and for everything you've done for us.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.